I was thinking like, okay, like what if there's like an app or a website or
Yeah, what
something.
if?
What
I'm
if
working
like
on it. All right, but this was my
okay,
original idea, dude. Or at least now
okay.
it's back in the scene a little bit, but holy man. So, guys, today I've got someone on the podcast that I thought would be a very interesting guest and a fun guest too. It's certainly fun to play with because his style's not conventional, but he has multiple unconventional ways of making money, and a lot of money at that. And apparently, he's played a six-bet pot all in with me. I forgot about it actually, and I want to talk about that for a second. Where he had a 10-9 offsuit, and I think I had kings. I do remember that part. I don't remember for how much money it was though, actually. But yeah, he reminded me. Luis reminded me, aka Brazil God, Luiz Rizental. You may have known. He's one of my competitors on the Hustler live poker stream. I think we played like 200, 400, 800 or some shit like that. Like sort of an $80,000 buy-in. How big was this pot that we're talking about?
I think it was like 230, 240. It was on
Was
some
it?
yeah, it was on like a tabloid, like a poker news thing. So I actually I was playing in Brazil, and one of my guys at the table, he showed it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this hand. Um, yeah, that was a fun hand. I still remember how the hand went, just because of it's not often you six bet 10-9 and you scoop versus kings. So yeah.
Was it for
Standard hand.
230K, really?
Yeah, it was like 100 and something each, just over 100 each.
Oh,
Um,
I totally forgot. Yeah, the reason I forgot is because I mean, like, I just view these coolers to be kind of inevitable. There's not like really anything I could have done differently to prevent them, and actually, it's kind of a good thing in a way. Like, I assume the streams. I think there's really high chance the streams secure, so I'm not really worried about cheating or anything like that. Um, and I just think, yeah, just don't. I don't know. It doesn't. It'd be nice if I don't know what's up with my brain, but I just rewired in that weird way where I'm just thinking like, where can I get more value out of something rather than what's this bad thing? What's the point of focusing on this bad thing in the past? But it's just one weird thing about me that my mind's really rewired for, or happens to be wired for, is a unique, useful skill in like poker, and I presume like trading, which I know you're very good at as well. It's one of the things that I understand you've made quite a lot of money from, as well as hosting games and poker itself, perhaps. Uh, and I would just think for all these kinds of things, all you have to do is focus on that edge, which,
yeah, it's similar to trading, or at least the style of trading that I do, where it's I'm trading you know up to 1,000 times a day, in a
oh, really?
high frequency fashion. Yeah, it's just like algorithms that are trading on my behalf, but I'm helping with the development of those. I'd say the main difference between poker and trading is like is that in poker you get a lot of you know a lot of potential gain as far as like it's more fun or whatever when you do the non GTO thing, right? Like when you just go for it in a spot where it's like you're technically not supposed to and they fold, or like you're supposed to bet three-quarter spot and you bet 2x pot with value and they call. There's there's a lot of you have some positive feedback from doing that in poker, and which I think is why players play knowing that like they're not great, and like and playing for fun, right? When you take the nature of playing for fun, that by itself it indicates that players are not using optimal kind of paths and strategies. Whereas in trading, there's no like I mean, I've never really felt like a positive feedback from doing the wrong thing. If I take too much risk in something, even if it works out, I just feel, not that great. And then if it
Oh,
doesn't work
really?
out, yeah, because it doesn't really, yeah, like it doesn't really work that way in high frequency trading. Now, if you're trading like in a directional manner, right? I'm going to buy this and I'm going to hold it, or I'm going to go long, Bitcoin in 2012. Like, yeah, and it works out. Then you just make a fortune and whatever. But my style of trading is more systematic. Like, my edges are very small. Extremely small
Hmm.
actually. I think less than 52% of the trades that I make, I think, are winners. Um, but that edge is still good enough to win, or like to make a profit post costs. So that's I think is the biggest you know difference, right? Because if you play cards the way you're supposed to in a lot of like formats, it can be a really boring game. Like a nine-handed game with two blinds and no ante and no straddle,
Yeah,
nothing. Like
that's
that's
silly.
just like that's a boring game. Like if you
Yeah,
like
well, that's
if
what boring people,
yeah yeah
fucking internet nerds, and I'm being harsh.
right
I'm being harsh, but it is boring.
yeah
I guess a lot of people who, someone with like the pure solved version will play that, and then I don't know. It's like you sit there and wait for your 15% or whatever. I think it's boring myself, but go ahead, go ahead.
yeah no it's and that's why like if I play a full ring game, uh I'm almost always playing with people that are playing double the number of hands they should, and myself I'm playing at least that, depending on the stakes, maybe 3 or 4 times that sometimes, um, but it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more enjoyable for like everybody, and I think like you know, and I think if you don't do that, or like the atmosphere isn't catered to that, you just won't have a game run. Um, you know, a lot of times, right? Um,
Hmm.
for the stakes that we're playing, for the hustler games, if the
Sure.
hustler games became a thing where the average VPIP was 15, I don't think a lot of people would watch, and I don't think a lot of people would play. I just don't think those games would run very
If the
often.
average, if the average VPIP was 15, you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I remember you like had a good insight into the psychology of VIPs, where I remember I was wrong, and you told me don't, you're supposed to show hands, and I thought I don't think I should show my bluffs and things like that. I've like kind of disciplined my mind where I may have pride, and I want to show my hands and whatever. A lot of people or want to, I have to squash that pride, and I think like I don't want to show that people that I'm bluffing and we keep bluffing them, and I don't want to make them feel bad that they folded. But you were telling me, I remember this specifically. Um, I realize a side note to add, by the way, but
sure.
um, anyway, okay. So if you were telling me specifically, like, no, like if you show them, they might think if only I just called, then I could win the hand and win all the money. And like, there's like a more of a psychology to that than the fact that to get people to uh, like try to beat you rather than feeling that they got crushed, like that kind of thing. Which I didn't realize. I thought it was the other way. And by the way, full disclosure for me making fun of internet nerds, as one who's a bit of an internet nerd and was one,
Yeah.
I feel like I am privileged to make fun of internet nerds. Uh, Athletes and jocks cannot make fun of internet nerds. That would be mean. For example.
uh, yeah. The other thing about showing uh, your hand and stuff is like it's like a quick way, especially if you don't have like the personality like right away to like talk to strangers, or like get everybody involved all the time, to like involve people that weren't in the hand, because
Hmm.
they see something that is like oh wow, it's a big bluff, or oh, like nice fold, he had like I had it, stuff, and like they just like feel kind of like more part of the action, like even in stuff they're not involved in. So I think it's something that it corroborates like a friendly environment. And I think
Hmm.
like
That's an interesting
you know,
idea.
yeah, and if you're like a winner in the game, um, hell, I've been showing hands even when I was just like a massive whale. But you know, uh, it makes it to where it's more of a friendly thing. Um, and I think like people want to play with you more when they don't fear you or when they don't like here's what I tell like a lot of like my friends that are like pros and they're trying to like play in like a good game and stuff and they can't. It's like you know like the guys that play for fun like they kind of like and I'll just speak for myself like you kind of like know that like you might lose sometimes and like you might even know that you're expected to lose if you really are like honest with yourself. Like when I sit down and I play blackjack in Vegas, I know the house is going to win in the long run. I think everybody does. I think even like people that are not good at math know that that's how the Aria is built.
Right.
But that
Yeah.
every given time you sit down, you have a chance to win, and you've
Yeah.
experienced that before. You've experienced those highs. You've beat them on any given session. And I think like in poker, when people start to sit down with players that they're like, okay, I got no chance against this guy, and I'm not having fun in particular, like because like it's
Yeah.
like so competitive. Then it's just that's when it's bad. It's not that people don't want to play with people that are better than them. That's not the case. Like that happens all the time. There's a lot of players that a lot of people really like to play with that are significantly better than them, but and they
Right.
they know that and they want to play with them anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it just helps to kind of foster like a friendly environment, and that's certainly something that you want to be a part of.
Yeah. This is a really good topic for a lot of reasons, especially the difference between poker and casino games. Because actually, I was going to the ethics of what this was, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. But we do want more recreationals playing poker, of course, especially on this channel. And I do, especially if I believe that poker is more ethical. That being said, let's back up for a second. Let's back up 1 second, and then there's a few different interesting areas to approach here. And let's I want people to learn a little bit more about you because I think you're saying a lot of good things, and I want them to know a bit more about like your degree of success, why they should listen to you, and a bit more of the fact that you actually run games in Chicago. And do you run them in Riverside? Is that the
Yeah.
name of the casino? Yeah, because you
Rivers
run a high
Casino.
stake. You run like a 200 400 game, like a $40,000 buy-in game, right?
No, it's smaller than that. It's usually quarter 50 100.
Oh, okay. It's still
And
big. It's
then
still
yeah,
10,000 plus, like
no,
20,000 or
no, it's
whatever.
still big. Yeah, it's still big. And like sometimes like the 200 is on, and sometimes if it's just like a smaller, friendlier game, it can even be like quarter, you know, 50, maybe like 100. But yeah, but it's still like a big game relative to certainly anything that runs in the public space, kind of anywhere outside Vegas in the series. I mean, but even Vegas in the series, once you get to quarter 50, it's usually private. Sometimes, that's kind of like the borderline. Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background for me. Well, on the poker side, my involvement in running games is, um, it started with me just having a permanent seat in a game. Um,
A
I
perfect
had like
what?
a permanent. I just had a
Oh.
permanent seat just because I was kind of like fun to play with, and I was reliable. I loan people money if they needed it. And it's
Hmm.
just like something that it's a fun thing I like to do. I like to play cards once a week or twice a week. But the guy who really does all the work, um, he still does all the work. I just I help recruit. I help out with loans. I help out with jokes from time to time. But
Well, we
That's
need help with the jokes sometimes, you know.
yeah. No, they fall flat sometimes, but but
Everyone's
then
jokes fall flat.
on the how I started to play cards, I've been a professional trader since 2013.
Hmm.
Before that, I was in investment banking for 4 years, uh, and despite the fact that when I got into trading, a lot of traders were former pros who played
Yeah.
poker, like kind of
Oh, really?
like after, yeah, like after Black Friday. I think it was in 2011, right? If I remember correctly. Like I wasn't playing poker, but I think that's when it was, or like around there. People got into trading if they could. A lot of people stayed. There's actually a trading firm um, called SIG. That's where Bill Chen,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
guy
I
that,
thought I heard that name before. Yeah, I know about Bill.
yeah, yeah. So he works there, and actually, I think they have like 50 plus players who are play poker at a pretty high level at the firm.
Oh, really?
But yeah, so you know, uh, despite that kind of involvement, I never really played. Like I might have played poker once or twice in college, but I wasn't even sure of the rules still. So fast forward to 2017 or late 16, I go to the casino and I went with like an intern that was interning for us, and I played 1-2. I think I lost like $400, and I was like, man, that's just like really silly. What a dumb way to lose like $400, and but for some reason, like I don't know why I went back, and I remember like when I lost $1,000, I think I was playing 2-5 at that point. I was like, man, I'm never coming back. Like that's like I could buy a flight to like a lot of places with that. That's just like so dumb. It's just luck, like it's just such a stupid game. But um, and then like from there on, like for some reason I kept going back, and I decided to just climb stakes for without really earning it, and kind of from 2017 or mid to late 17 to the pandemic, I played mostly like 510, um, and that was just kind of for fun. Also, like twice a week, sometimes 3 days a week.
So, where
Uh,
was the point where you really saw this as like a money making opportunity, or just decided to play high stakes? Maybe you didn't even see it as a money making opportunity. Maybe you just decided
yeah,
this is fun and
no, it's a
like
good
whatever.
question. Yeah, so pretty much like um, kind of right before the pandemic, uh, I didn't see it as as a money making opportunity. I saw it as kind of like, okay, if I want to keep playing this game, I can't keep losing, or like I can't keep losing at the rate I'm losing. Like I just want to break even.
Right.
Like like what people don't understand is the money that they can lose in poker is like really significant, and it's significant across stakes. I mean, if you do the math, like if you're like a 10 big blind per hour loser at 2-5 and you're losing $50 an hour and you play for 20 hours a week, that's $1,000 a week. That's
Yeah.
post tax money. I mean, that's like 50K a year, right? 52K a
Well,
year
you
if you
can
like analyze.
you can you can write off that, and also that's like a pretty modest losing rate. That's like kind of being a bit of a like not a huge fish, to be
Right,
clear.
right. That's not even the biggest loser. That's just like a loser. And like, I'm not even going to talk about the high rate games or anything like that. But even at 2-5, playing twice a week, you can still lose 50K a year. That's post tax, money and stuff. Like, so if you play higher, like obviously you can lose like a lot more. So I was just like, okay, I got to get better. I got to like talk to somebody, right? So um, coincidentally, I had a friend of mine right before the pandemic. He was like, a really good player, but he wanted to quit and go into trading actually. So, I helped him with his interviews. I helped him kind of like, just talk about trading and kind of exchange, I guess. Like even though it was a very like not non-structured environment, he would help me with poker. Like, and again, like it's not like we went over like hand ranges or whatever. He would just kind of give me feedback on the way I played hands, on like why this hand is dangerous to play, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then so then I started getting a little bit better, but still I didn't have any like structure to the way I played or whatever. And then the pandemic happened, and um, kind of all the games went into the apps, right? So we
Yeah.
kind of all the games went to online games, and
There's
he
probably
was
big
in the
games,
app.
some good games there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so like our Chicago crew, our main game was 3-6-12, and I think it was I think it was a 3K buy-in. Um, maybe it went up to 4K. I don't really remember, but you know that got me playing a lot more hands, and it got because my friend he also played this app. Like the hands that I played were really visible, right? So a lot easier to have kind of like feedback. Um, and it just kind of went from there. And then I just started to watch um, streams and watch like good players play and kind of think about the way they play hands. I have another friend in LA who's a good player. Like I started to like kind of bounce ideas with him a little bit.
Hmm.
I played, you know, the original guy I'm talking about. I played him heads up for maybe like 7,000 hands or something. Kind of like smaller stakes, like 5-10 or something. And I know that I knew that I would not be a favorite, but that got my brain thinking a lot more, kind of like methodically about the game.
Well, let me ask you this: Why it surprises me a bit that you it sounds like you don't like basically co-host the game in order to make any money. You're just co-host to play and to basically. It sounds like you're trying to bring, for the most part, players that aren't like killing it together and have a game. Is what? Am I mistaken here?
Yeah, no, I want to I want to win, just to like make all the effort kind of worth it, as far as like all the bullshit I went through in poker and all this stuff. But it's not like the primary objective for me. And knock on wood, right? Because I don't want it to just go on a massive losing streak and be upset. But yeah, like kind of the cool thing that we've done in Chicago, and we've kind of like brought our games to Lodge and to HCL, or like a few of our guys, is that the atmosphere um, and the style of play is like really kind of unique. And like everyone that has like a private game or like that plays a private game says like, oh, the action's so sick, this game's good, whatever. Um, but this is like a unique kind of thing where the player pool is so close knit, and all of us are kind of like friendly, or at least, yeah, at the very least, and close friends, like on the other end of the spectrum. And it's like a self-policing thing. If a new guy comes, or like even like a guy that's already played a lot, and he's just like being a nit, he's not giving action, whatever. Like the players will just like demand it from them, or like they'll get mocked, they'll get made fun of, and it's like showing bluffs is encouraged, and people, yeah, and kind of like everyone kind of like buys into this, um, kind of game, which is super cool.
Hmm.
Uh, and for me, like, I travel a lot for work and stuff. Like, I find myself like scheduling my trips around, you know, the game if I can, if it's convenient, just because it's such a fun atmosphere. Um, you know, but yeah, like I still want to win. It's just like I never like say that a session was like really shitty because I lost. I just It's just not a. It's not my primary like. It's not my first goal or whatever. You know.
Right, right. Okay, well, it seems like you're like, I mean, you could make money with this too. It seems like you could very easily turn your hobby into a making money situation, which I think is something
Yeah.
that I mentioned this because I think that's a lot something a lot of like my audience aspires to do. I presume they're in it for making money. Um, at least that's one of the goals. We're trying to make some money. Uh, whereas having multiple outlets is quite useful. Um, and I mean, yeah, like this is an obvious like way to do it. I wonder if you do you ever consider using this as a bit of like a tool to meet people and that kind of thing? Because I'd imagine, like it's
Yeah.
ideal to meet people that have the same sorts of interests. I mean, you'd want there to be like a real authentic connection that's not, like
Yeah.
based off of
Certainly. I
like
mean.
whatever superficial thing,
Yeah.
like
No.
status of mind.
Certainly. Yeah. One of the cool things about playing high stakes, just like, just in general, like especially like in private games, is some of the people that you meet are like really cool people like in life. They do like a lot of cool stuff. They've done um like their lives are like really interesting. And yeah, like like a lot of my close friends now, I've met in poker, and they're come from a background that's not in poker. So that's really cool. And that element is like, at least for me, it became a lot cooler the higher the stakes that I played, just because your odds of meeting successful and interesting people, I think, are higher. Um, you can still meet interesting guys at your local, 1-2 home game, and I have, but the problem is that, or the potential problem is that there has to be an additional kind of vetting at those stakes, just because the barriers to entry is so low. So like, a lot of scumbags can get in and stuff. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that the high stakes world is free of scumbags, not by a long shot. Like, I see what you're doing, trying to out people that owe money, which is really nice, because I have a
So
couple on the list.
I want to clarify that. And by the way, so I have to have a what's the word? A partition strategy. I'm creating a whole strategy actually. But the
Okay.
worst
What's
offenders that are dangerous need to get outed, partly as an example. But people that owe money by itself, I don't think that that's exactly the best approach. It's certainly not immediately. But the people that are, there's differences to the people, right? So with you, I don't know your situation with the people that owe money. Um, but at minimum, I'm happy to like text or even like go up and say like, hey, you need to pay Brazil got his money. Well, I won't say, but I'll say like,
yeah.
I'll say it as politely as possible because it's not
Oh,
cool.
that's
You
that's
got to
very
owe
nice
them.
of you.
You got Yeah. I have no problem to do this. I can go into it more if you'd like, but
Sure. Yeah.
start with the polite way and the nice way first before going crazy and like ruining people's lives.
No, I think that's really cool, and I have a couple questions for you. So, um, I agree with you. I think, like, most people, right? Like, most people don't set out to scum other people, or like a pool of people. Like, I think, you know, I think there's a reason why at the casino, when you play a table game, you have to have the chips in front of you. You can't say like, "I'll bring it downstairs. I'll bring it to you in 10 minutes." Right? Like,
Yeah, I get the
you know,
chips in my pocket.
yeah, the casinos, like, they're experts at making you part ways with your discretionary income into their table games, right? Or like, their slots, or whatever it is. Um, so I think that most people, at least like most cases I've seen, is like they do intend to pay you back, but then they get so deep, and then they lose more, and then they don't have it, or maybe like they have it, um, but it's between paying you and buying into another tournament, so it's like, I don't know. Um, so but I do think, and I'm not like making excuses for these people, right? It's just I think that's kind of how it starts, and then depending
Yeah.
on their actions post getting into this. quicksand, then it determines if they're a scumbag or not.
Yeah.
But I think the social pressure really helps. And actually, so when we were running this app game during the pandemic, because it was a no rate game, um, you know, it's not like people paid the host and the host redistributed the money to the winners. We had like a spreadsheet of everyone that played, and the pool, like kind of like everyone kind of knew each other for the most part, or like at least like 80% or 90%. So we said, hey, Dan, you're gonna pay John. Bob, you're gonna pay Paul, and the spreadsheet was open to everybody, so everybody could see how much everybody owed. And whenever you made a payment, you went and you posted in the chat like, okay, I paid him 10K, and then you know the 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 debt of one guy would go down to zero, and the credit to another guy would go up by 10K, and everybody could see it. So if you owed the game for a couple weeks, and you're supposed to settle like each week, people saw it. They're like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so and so still owes 5K, or he hasn't squared up, and he's still playing. Hey, should he be playing? So it was kind of like just like the natural. That was like social pressure enough, and with the exception of one outlier, like that worked really well. But my question for you is like, what do you think about a system where, um, I was thinking like, okay, like what if there's like an app or a website or
Yeah, what
something.
if?
What
I'm
if
working
like
on it. All right, this was my
okay,
original idea, dude. Or at least now
okay.
it's back in the scene a little bit, but holy man.
When I joined as like a co-founder of my old trading firm, I was 29. I had left like a normal firm, and a developer of mine was like, "Hey, let's like, I'm going to start up this firm. You know, join me." And the only reason I did was because I was like, man, my knowledge is worth more now if I get to keep most of it than if I give it to this like other place and they pay me, like a bonus or whatever. And then I just was kind of like co-running a firm with him, but not because I wanted to be like a business owner necessarily or like whatever. It just kind of happened naturally. And in this case, like you mentioned like get good at this and then do this and this, and I 100% agree. Like there's a reason that in an airplane they tell you put on your mask first before assisting others. All right, for you to like assist somebody or like a team into developing like an app or like a website or like a company, whatever it is, you sort of have to like have your ducks in a row
Yeah.
first. But as far as like the app or like the site goes or whatever, like my general thought or like full disclosure, I have no interest in like actually taking time to do this, at least not anytime soon. But it would be like, okay, Dan, I'm in LA. I want to play, the Hustler stream. I didn't wire anything. I don't have any cash. I need 100K. And you're like, okay, Brazil God, like sounds like I don't know, seems like a good guy, or whatever. But it's still 100,000. Like, yeah, I'm 90% sure he's fine for it, whatever.
90%'s not a
But
great ratio.
no, no, whatever. But let's say that there's like a thing where you can post on, like, sure, like send me a request, like a debt request on XYZ app, and I'll approve it, and then I'll give it to you. So now there's a ledger created for whoever has this app, like, oh, this guy owes this guy, and it's there and it's public, and it's safer for both sides. Like, like I send you a request. If the request looks good, you accept, and then you pay me the money or whatever. The hard part, I think, is to get immersion, to get everybody from stop using like a text message way of saying booked, this action's booked or this debt is booked, and using this kind of like social pressure platform, but then like people can log in and say like, hey, wait a second, like this guy has a bunch of requests outstanding, or like debts outstanding. Like
Well, this
I'm
is
gonna check his.
exactly you're getting like exactly into the mix of like what this would look like. I've kind of envisioned this, but basically the idea is to. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this, but basically the idea would be like, all this stuff already happens naturally. Like it already happens exactly what you're talking about, except it happens much more slowly, right? Like if you were to inquire about some dude that's trying to borrow 100K, like eventually you would find out all these requests of people that say like, oh, well, actually this guy owes all this other money. Why not just make it all visible? And now you don't have to go deal through all this bullshit of like talking to 10 different people or doing that due diligence when you just look on the app. That's
Right.
basically
Yeah,
where we're
and
heading.
it gets people that slip through the cracks because like you and I might be well connected in like high stakes home game, or like private games in like LA or like Vegas or whatever. But maybe somebody else isn't, or maybe somebody's like a bookie, and or like, or whatever, like whatever it is. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a good idea, and I would for sure be a user of this platform. You know, I think it would save me a lot of headaches. Um, you know, what do you think about the? I think, and I've heard you talk about this before, but what do you think about like the odds of repayment uh, versus the risk of going public with the situation? Like
Um.
presumably, if you go public, it lowers the risk of repayment, or does it?
So okay. So this is what I think about this. I have some experience with this. So obviously, there's an escalating scale, and what I personally look for is people who are like trying to make an effort. Like if someone's broke and they owe you money and they're trying to pay you, well, why do you need to like hurt them more? It doesn't make sense to hurt them, right?
Right.
It makes some sense
Sure.
to help them, to help to do things that are low investment for you, that help them, that have no risk on hurting you. That
Sure.
would be the
Yep.
ideal situation. If they're like really putting in some effort, if they're not putting much effort, then they're kind of taking the piss, right? And then in which case you gotta have to escalate. But if their whole life's up, there's no sense of kicking a down dog, like so in my I think you first have to start with the low level prodding, especially in these like people with these people who have like essentially been emotionally conditioned to um basically being told that it's okay when you do nothing and people do bad things. Now the Overton window moves, and then people think to get the emotional idea. It works. It works similar in gambling in a way, where it's okay. Like imagine if you made a bad play in poker and you just like never lost money from it. You would keep making that bad play,
Yeah, for
and then you
sure.
would just and then is it bad? Like it doesn't look like it's bad. Like you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not bad. You're not losing.
Right.
Oh, okay, it's good. You just keep doing it, and then like someone would say, some would say, "Oh, that plays bad because of math and it's not GTO or some bullshit." You'd be like, "I don't care. Like I don't lose money from it. Like whatever, right?" It's kind of some of the similar. It's a similar thing on like a grander scale. Where like morally speaking and like collectively speaking for society, and this is what I tell people is like if there's no repercussions for or no like annoying thing that happens if people loan owe money or whatever, then it makes sense actually to scam for money. Like this is now like a viable strategy. You see what I'm saying? So there has to be some kind of like escalation thing to match. But as you're getting to the point where, well, what about doing harsher things? And well, there are harsher things. In this case, ostracization is the ethical thing here. But yeah, like actually, yeah, at some point, if people are quite bad, they need to be outed or made publicly aware that they're viruses on the system, essentially, and they no longer can have those abilities.
Like, how did you, uh, because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like in any of like the timeline, but like you played online mostly, right? That's like where you started. Um, and you didn't have to deal with any debt issues until like presumably you played live cash, or like did you start backing people, or? or like when did when did you apart from the Tom situation, um,
Okay, I didn't
when
expect to
did
get interviewed, but okay. Yeah, I will answer that. So actually what happened was kind of funny. It seemed to me that the scams got cle- more and more clever for the most part. Like at first I was a raging idiot and just like trusted people massively. Like I booked I played someone in 600x crossbooked with them and they ended up making me $2 million and did not collect on that. It was an wild life lesson of sorts, actually. Um, yeah, that was a tough one. Uh, and then I got better and better, and there'd just be like all these weird ways to get screwed over to the point where at some point I realized, okay, I gotta like make sure these other sharp people are before I trust people with money. I need to ask other sharp people if these people are good for it, like that kind of thing. Where I had this idea of like expanding the business of what I was doing. And so, yeah, I backed people. There's that. I got screwed to that a bit, but also some good things in that too. Is both quite bad and quite good. And then I took shares of people, and sometimes they didn't pay their shares, so there's that. Um, I loaned a little bit of money, but not that much. It wasn't from loaning. It was usually people owed money from like a share of a game that they're supposed to pay from, or
I
I'm
say,
trying to think what else.
yeah, I see.
Like a prop bet or something where now they think something's not right and they refuse to arbitrate, like stuff like that. And then at some point, the screwing over basically got more like third party based, I believe. One ridiculous example, like someone hard vouched for a lot of money, someone very reputable, and the two people had to like the first guy had to screw me over, and then the second guy had to decide that his hard vouch was so both these things had to go wrong, and it had to be like an enormous figure, which is what happened. It was for coin flips, so I won like four coin flips in a row, and there was like a 400K debt somehow. But the gold mine hard mouth, golden boy hard vouches, and like that was a long thing. Um, and then somehow, like I tried to transfer money once, and someone connected us to a third party, and like, oh, like this guy ran off with the transfer. I'm like, what the? And like, just lots of random ass shit, man.
That's
Um, and then like another one was, uh, the most reputable person says that someone will pay like an enormous figure, and then the other person doesn't, who's like a billionaire. Like, it's just this kind of shit. I would like to go into more details. Actually, I'll give some details on that one. That one was from a private game, one of the biggest games that I ever played. The ante was, I'll review some details. So the ante was 20,000 Hong Kong dollars, I believe, or it might have been 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. I know that the buy-in was 20 million Hong Kong dollars. That was the buy-in to this game, and I was the biggest foreign winner in this game. And a billionaire owed me money, and then he fled China. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with him actually, because he is one of the guys that I think is like pretty damn bad, at least in my case. He's done some bad things, but basically, the Chinese government went after him and took a lot of his shit. And now he's like still rich, but not paying me life changing amounts of money. And like, what the? I like helped you win money, dude. Like, now you're stealing my money. What the? Like, and another billionaire, like legit billionaire, said, "Oh, he's 100%." I'm like, "Is he 100%? It doesn't seem like he is." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, 100%, man." So that's one of the stories. So it's a bit of a long story. But anyway,
Yeah, it just seems like for in your case, it's just uh, you're not being paid what you're owed from uh, natural wins, whether it's like props or games, which is pretty
yeah.
frustrating.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, one thing I say is I'm aiming to be something of like someone who deals with people as a big part of the game that of sorts that I'm trying to play, as someone who's aspiring to become someone who solves world problems and presumably makes this app a reality. So you can look at it like I try to look at it like this, where this is hopefully a learning lesson, down the line and dealing with much larger problems.
That's
Because,
cool.
I mean, hopefully, because it's like, I mean, people in many ways resemble like a poker game and dealing with them anyway. It's like you have incomplete information. There's a distribution of the results that they can have, um, or the things they can do. It's more complicated in poker. But anyway, why don't we talk about more about you and your
Sure.
experiences? Yeah, I thought it seemed to me that a subject that was really hot on your subject list. I didn't know the whole debt collection thing was hot on your subject list, but a big one that seemed that you want to talk about was like how do you get in these games and how do you make them fun? They're recreational for
Oh yeah.
play, and now how do you get these like wrecks to want to play with you if you're like some like kid from the internet?
Yeah. So I think like yeah, if we're gonna like streamline it, you know, be somebody that people want to sit around for 10 hours, right? Um, that's
Mhm.
that's the biggest that's the biggest thing. And as far as like the poker itself goes, just think about all the stuff in your poker career that has annoyed you at the table. Maybe somebody taking a long time to act, or maybe somebody like covering their face, or like whatever it is, and just do the opposite, right? Like just act fast, play fast, be friendly, like show bluffs, like you know, play more hands than like is like optimal. Like if you just if you do all that, like for sure you're gonna get a lot more a lot more invites. And here's the one goose egg, I guess, or like the one saving grace is that most private game environments they need pros, or like they need regs, whatever you want to call it. Like they need players that are consistently able to make the game run. Um, right? It's hard to like get like 10 players that all have like different schedules because they're not playing cards for a living or whatever to all sit down every week and just play each other, right? Like you need some sort of structure. Like you need a guy that's going to be there on time. This is the time we start. It's typically the organizer,
Sure,
but usually there's like two or three or four sometimes, or like rotations. Like so that's my
sure,
2 cents, I guess.
yeah. A major like way of organizing all these things that you're talking about, which is that important to point out, which is that so like all the things you said are important, but some things matter a lot more in certain contexts than others. Like sometimes you just have to play the political game, especially if it's like big money or whatever, or if like, or sometimes you just have to like give action enough in certain kinds of ways. And like actually Tom's really good at this, but he kind of overshoots the line where it's not really clear if he's making money or not in a lot of spots, right? I think that's his thing. I mean, but he gets into all the best games. You have to like he's a master of the getting into the games part. I don't know like how I mean the word on the street is like people love to play with him, right? I mean he's got like all actually Tom has like almost all the traits that we're talking about here, from what I hear. So he's got all the charming ones. So and I think in like a lot of the games that people play, a lot of those traits where people are a little bit more lax with who they play with matter more. Um, like being really engaging, like that can matter more. Being really like just like doing a lot of those little gestures, like those are all like small little edges and things like that in a way. It's just like sometimes, and this, yeah, this totally goes for like talking to different kinds of girls I found, because sometimes just other criteria just matter way the more. Um, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it by like focusing on these other details that overall present a much more nicer and well-rounded, more rounded proposition. Whereas, like, yeah, like sometimes, like, really, you just have to say, "Hey, what can I do to get in this game?" and just be like that upfront about it, and find a way. That's been my personal experience, and like sometimes I've just done that big of a favor, and it's like that's what's gotten me in, and not a whole lot else mattered, and there's like massive leeway in the other direction. Um, where like my manners and all that shit were not that good. Like I totally had that situation. But I think overall, like all that stuff matters a lot. And basically, while I had all those bad mannerisms and things like that, and like even now, sometimes I'm kind of cold, but whatever. I mean, if I'm really tired, I'll be a little bit more cold or something. Sometimes I'm exhausted. But
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like to that kind of point, like, you know, if you're gonna like do something, or like, say you're tired, or like, whatever, or like um something that's like gonna get you to show up less than your optimal kind of self, like as far as like this environment, is just kind of be upfront about it. Like here's a good example. Like say you're in a spot where you're gonna tank for like 5 minutes, okay? Like it's a really borderline spot. You gotta like put some thought into it. But you have a strong hand, okay? Like somebody's just triple barreled, and you have like, I don't know, like whatever it is, like an overpair or something. Um, I find that people usually have like, there's two routes that you can go. You can like tank and you can fold, and that's okay. You take like 5 minutes and then you fold, and it's like the fish wins the hand, no harm, no foul, whatever. Even if they have like a really good hand. Or you can take a long time and you can call. And if you're right, like if they're bluffing and you're right, then it's like really bad. Because then it's like, dude, like get this jungle man guy out of here, right? You just like waste everybody's time. He's got like he's got like an overpair or whatever. So I think the best route when when you're about to do something that's like annoying, like taking a while to like call or like fold, whatever it is just like announcing it to the table. Got like I have a really strong hand. Like I have like an overpair, but you're so tricky. Or like you can have anything. You can have every two pair. Like guys, like don't like and that way it braces people. Like okay, like he's just got like he has just one pair and he's gonna like think about it and stuff. I find that that's just like it's so much more respectful to the table and to other people, and people will connect with you for like people will be like, oh yeah, I remember when I had aces and some crazy maniac went all in and they just river two pair, so like people will connect on that front, but it's just like a lot harder to get sympathy or whatever if you take 5 minutes and then you call and you're right, and like you have like an overpair like with just like a seemingly strong hand. um and just taking that mindset for like everything, right? Like
Mhm.
like if you're getting up to go to the bar and get a drink or whatever, like you're gonna order food. Just ask if anybody else wants food and just like order them food, right? Or like just like all these like
Right.
kind, just being kind and aware that uh, you're in a setting where it's not just about you. Like if you're just not a selfish asshole, that goes like a really long way, a lot longer than people think. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point. Like, I mean, I've said this before, and I think it totally applies here, but it actually was a big revelation for me because at one point, my bad antics and all that, I paid for them. Uh,
Apparently, yeah.
my rudeness or whatever it was, and like getting really upset when I lost. Actually, it reminds me, I like sometimes crack a little bit. Sometimes it goes, it's mostly gone, but every once in a while I crack when I play 5K, 10K, and can't beat um, well my opponents, uh,
Sure.
and uh, and whatever all the other stuff's going on. But and like in the past, I was I didn't do so well at the tables, particularly with like it was more for like higher stakes games, I guess. But they tolerated it actually. They were really nice to me. And then eventually it caught up to me, and I realized, oh shit, I have to change. Like this is actually hurting me. But at some point, a big realization that I had was like, wait a second, all these like nice behaviors are actually like edges in a way, even in the monetary sense for poker. But they're not even like edges, just in that. But also if you want to like have more friends and things like that. Like
Yeah, in
basically
life.
being kind, period, is an edge. Like that's still like an edge in
Yeah,
life,
100%.
period. Like it's not just for money. It's just period, like a better way of
Yes.
doing things for all kinds of reasons.
Yes.
And then again, this leads towards my own spiritual epiphanies and stuff like that, where I realized, holy shit, all these good things are they all just edges? But that's a much bigger topic. But that's like really where the podcast comes into play. Anyway, so poker's totally true. Where just being kind gets you into games and doing all these nice things will get people to like you more and actually will increase your bottom line in the long run in a shitload of cases from what I've seen over my my own 18 years of experience. That's what I do. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. And like even if it doesn't increase your bottom line, right? Like even if your bottom line's the same, isn't that a much better situation, period? You just have like you enjoy yourself more at the table. People enjoy being with you. You make more friends. Like it's just a much more fun environment. Like isn't that like in itself so much more fun? And like when you think about the fact, like think about the fact that the people love the game so much that they play year after year in many cases, and they're like just losing, right? And like I'm taking, I'm not even including all the people that are like, addicted to gambling, and like that's like a dark route, whatever. Like I don't even want to talk about that, but like, these people like really enjoy poker. Like I myself, like I really enjoyed poker and stuff, and like how cool is it that you can be a winner and enjoy yourself more, even if it doesn't change your bottom line at all. I think that's super cool.
Let's just wrap things up with a couple things. Two things. The main thing, let's streamline the idea of things that help these guys or help people get into games. Streamline that and to break it down into categories real fast. And then let's remind people a bit about yourself and why they should listen to you. Um,
Okay.
uh, because you run your own $50-$100 home game. You've been in the scene for a while. Successful trader, and otherwise great life success, and also beat me playing on Hustler Stream for massive amounts of
Yeah.
money and beating me out of $200,000.
Well, I
Um,
was trying to tilt you every chance I could. But that's a separate that's an aside. Um, yeah. So I think I don't want to like sound repetitive, but I think you want to get in these kind of games like wherever your local city is or like your local game is. I think being kind, being social, playing
sure. Okay.
fast,
Kind, social,
kind
playing fast, playing
social,
in ways that are fun to deal with. Let's just put it like that. I
playing in
think
ways
fast
that are
is one of
fun
them.
to deal with,
Yeah.
and being okay with giving up EV, being okay with straddling if the whole table's not straddling, being okay with like all these things. They have a cumulative effect, and I think
Hmm.
taking an interest in people, and
Sure.
even if and like for me it came naturally, right? But even if it doesn't come natural to you, if you just say like I'm gonna ask three of my players at the table like how they're doing and like get to know something about them, even like as forced as that might be, uh, maybe a conversation will spark. That's like kind of like natural. You'll and I've found that that can happen with even the nerdiest of shy guys, and I think that's a thing I do really well is I get like these guys that are a little shy or whatever, to just come out of their shell, and then they themselves have a much better time. People assume that just because you're shy, like you don't like fun. That's not the case. It's just like a personality, you know, difference. And why you should listen to me. The second part of that is I don't know if you should or not. I'm just like some guy. Like I am not like I don't even have a Hendon mod. Okay, I have no tournament caches ever. So but um, I do participate in kind of running a really successful, really fun game. I myself am like successful enough in the game that I can keep playing the game. Um, and uh, from like an analytical side, um, you could argue that my occupation, my job is a technical enough one to where I have like a baseline intelligence, um, that's like above the average, uh, you know, for
I don't think
people that
I think
are,
that's pretty apparent. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's kind of all I got. But I look forward to playing with you in the future. Um, looking to crack you, looking to make you pull out your silly glasses or costume or whatever the hell you're gonna do.
I'll do some silly costume, sure. I
Yeah,
want to point out a couple more things before we finish things up, just so the guys can get as much as they can out of this before we wrap things up, and to keep it really simple and summarize because that's always nice.
sure.
So I still think it's important to be visible to the people that are running the games, be in the vicinity, and to keep that in mind. Like people don't know, people got a lot of things going on, and they don't know what the going on. So you have to be in their scope of sight, and like they have to know who you are, like that kind of thing. I think is like really underrated. People get caught up in their heads and think, oh, I know you don't want to intrude or whatever, and end up being basically invisible, like a wallflower. And then, of course, no one notices the wallflowers. That's why they're wallflowers. And so I personally think the political route is still like a pretty major route, to be honest, and worth thinking about. And you could just straight up, I personally think you could just straight up say, like, hey, are there any favors I can do to get in this game? Like, that totally worked for me. It's really simple. And, that's one way of like giving a lot of values. You can like do things for people and not do people favors, like pretty like straightforward way. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes it has been really straightforward. But yeah, other than that, being kind and being fun and being social by and giving lots of action, those are really some of the biggest ways, with straddling, with uh, three betting maybe, or bluffing, you even said, and showing
Yeah,
cards, like that kind of shit, giving up edges, and like limping or just playing lots of hands, not being boring. Um, yeah, giving a different kind of currency that they're looking for might be one way to look at it, but
yeah,
it's kind of a
and I
weird
think
way.
I've had just this is just like the contrarian point. I've had like friends that are pros be like, I don't want to like be disingenuous and like I don't want to be fake. I don't want to like suck up to all these people, blah blah blah. And I say like, I think a lot of that is just insecurity. Like you're just like insecure about taking the a strategy game, like what has been a strategy game in your head, and and putting that in the back seat for something that's more of like a social thing, for something that's more like a dinner party, because maybe you thrive more on this strategy thing than you do at a dinner party, right? Like maybe you're not like the best guest for a dinner party, and that's okay. Like they're each different skills, right? Like not everybody's going to be the most interesting guy at a dinner table, and not everybody's going to be the best like player for this strategy game, whether it's poker, chess, whatever it is. And that's okay. You have to accept like, okay, I'm not like that great at this situation, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna try because like all these positive things can come from trying that are not necessarily bottom line, but bottom line could of course be included in that for players that are good at the game. Um,
Sure.
and people, and if pros don't want to do that or like whatever, like I use the term kind of like loosely, that's fine, whatever. There's a place to play, like if you just want to say like I want to put on my headphones and I just want to zone in and I just want to like I don't want to talk to anybody, whatever, that's okay. There are places
That's
for
the
you to
main
play,
event.
you know. There you go, you play the minute. So
The main event's a pretty good one for that. Although I personally try to watch people during the main event to see if I pick up stuff. So I would say to that, Well, on the topic of being kind, this is kind of where you get to this idea of like be kind, period, which is hard to do all the time. Like actually, if you really look deeply, people are quite manipulative. In fact, virtually no one is kind 100% of the time to all people equally. As you'll if you one was to look deep inside, and that's like people you might even find that a lot of people think they're kind, but no, not really. So there's that. And I look at a lot of these things like giving action and stuff like we don't even know if this is really like making like you can lower the line really by quite a lot, and it's just basically giving people what they want. Like people want action, people want fun. Like you can give them what they want, or you cannot be part of the party. Why is that disingenuous? Like you don't have to be fun all the time, but when you're at a party, probably should be a little bit fun and not ball up and do crazy ass shit. You know what I mean? It's not the time to be to give off all your dirty laundry or anything like that at a party. It's the same thing. It's the same thing where you want to be accommodating to your guests and all that at a poker table. That's my personal perspective.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank
Cool.
you, Brazil God, for all your time and insights. I hope that people listen, and I hope that people use this information to create a better environment for every one of these private games and pay some debts and stuff.
Yeah,
And
me too. I hope
hopefully,
that everyone pays their debts and are more fun for the game. Make it. That'll make poker fun again, and a lot more players that are starting to play the game. Recreational players will come into ecosystem as a natural
yeah.
result.
Another thing, by the way, a thought just hit me. One last thing would be to on I presume on the subject of hosting games, it might be really like I would think that host needs a maybe you can provide insights, but a host not your main job, but I guess there's something to like hosting like the right environment. There's probably a lot of stuff to that that's good to know.
I think that like I think the right environment kind of varies. Like, there's some of the private games that have like all the girls, like massage
Right.
girls and
Yeah.
whatever, like all that stuff. And some of them have,
Yeah. Whatever.
yeah, like whatever it is. And some of them are just in casinos, right? At Bellagio, they have a private game run 5 days a week, right? Like in Bobby's room or whatever. So each game has their own thing. But I think what's common in all the games in most of the games that I've played in or been a part of, is all the stuff that we discussed beforehand all apply, you know, and 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 they apply, I think, across the cultures too. Like even like when I play like in Brazil or when I play in Colombia or like Europe, um, Canada. I've even played in Macau actually. This is like a long time ago, but just like the public games, and even though there was like a language barrier, of course, and only like several, like only a few people spoke English, like they still understood the antics. They still understood like like a silly thing or whatever. Um, so I think the focus is on all the other stuff as opposed to like, like focusing on like the environment that you're hosting. Because I think people get
Hmm.
that a lot more naturally. Like if you're gonna invite, say you're gonna play Monopoly at your house, okay, like a game that you're not like world class in, and you invite six of your best friends, or like like five of your best friends, like or like whatever it is. The environment you're gonna host is gonna be like it's going to be a good one, right? Like you're going to host an environment that people want to be a part of. They're your friends, right? So I think like the environment that is hosted isn't that important. I don't think, unless it's like totally bad. But I think the people that
Hmm.
play the game are much more important than the actual like
Okay. I mean,
that's
that's still an important thing. That might be a really good way of looking at it, actually. It's just, I mean, it works this way in business where you got to get the right people on board and get the wrong people the off. is apparently the most important thing in business. So maybe
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
I think so. Yeah, it's much more important than if you like, oh, I have to have a game at Waldorf, or I have to, I gotta get this kind of table, or I gotta get, these girls to work the game, or I gotta get, yeah, all that stuff doesn't really matter. I don't think, or,
Oh,
doesn't matter
really?
as much.
Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
This I went to.
people people have fun playing, like at Hustler, they have fun playing at Bellagio, at Aria, they have fun playing in somebody's basement, in somebody's, I mean, I've had fun playing in all sorts of atmospheres. I personally don't think it's that important. Maybe other people in the chat or some dissenting opinions can opine, but I find that the people that I'm playing with are much more important than the hosted environment.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm gonna investigate this to
Cool.
figure this one out. I want to look more into this, but I haven't looked too much into hosting myself. But anyway, thank you so much for your time, Luis.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. I
All right.
appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.